There we go. All right.
Did we do it?
I think we did it.
Are we winning?
Everything's Gucci.
Yeah.
Welcome to Talking Heads, everyone. Episode 275. Your once-weekly live show for the latest in beer and cocktails and tech news. I'm Jeff.
I'm Rett.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us on this Wednesday night, or over in podcast form on Anchor.fm, or wherever your favorite podcasts are found. If you've never seen the show before, we talk beer, we talk tech, we talk games, pop culture, entertainment, sometimes some Star Trek. All super chats are read on the air so long as they will not permanently demonetize the channel. We do drink alcohol on the show, and if you're drinking along with us, alcoholic or not, let us know in the chat and we'll give some early show shoutouts as we go along. Last but not least, if you'd like to take part in the super secret chat and the even more super secret after party, think about joining the Patreon. Link is down in the video description. As a bonus, you'll get exclusive access to my Discord server, where you can chat with myself, John, Rett, Steve, all the hosts from Talking Heads, and join the awesome community that hangs out over there. Welcome to the show, everyone. Rett, long time no see.
Hello. You might recognize me from the lurker in the studio during the day.
Yep.
Okay, stupid joke. We're starting strong. Rett, when's the next one? Don't know what he's talking about. Booze?
I don't know.
Show?
Oh,
Live stream?
next video. Your next video.
Right.
Yeah.
Hopefully soon. I've been sitting on a bunch of scripts. Yeah, it's just the gumption of like finishing it up, like getting them all out, filming them. Right now I'm reworking an analysis on a recent game called Road Warden, which is like a interactive fiction game. It's kind of like almost like a text-based adventure, really fun. If you guys are into, fantasy novels, it's like as close as you'll get to a fantasy novel in game form.
Nice.
So check it out on Steam or wherever you get your games.
Yeah, no, you were telling me about the game. It sounds really interesting.
It's fun, and it's not too heady or heavy. It's just like you're reading a book and making choices and having fun.
Yeah,
it is hard, but it's like hard and like oh boy, this is I don't know. It's good.
When Starfield comes out, I want a full Let's Play from Rett. That might be fun.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I was reading an article today that said I might have to choose between Baldur's Gate 3 and Starfield.
Yeah, they come out in back-to-back weeks.
Right.
Isn't that nuts?
I was like, well, shoot. I was like, and I could have opted into the early access for Baldur's Gate 3, and maybe I will just to see what's up. But I kind of wanted to wait until the full release to just kind of enjoy it that way. Early access isn't exactly my bag. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, I've gotten some pretty good success with some early access games and some absolutely horrid results with some early access games. So, yeah. But yeah, definitely looking forward to a fantastic late spring. So many good games on the horizon.
Yeah,
really, really
can't
are.
wait.
I've been kind of going through my back library, and I've hit the roguelike section of my back catalog, and literally the last 3 or 4 games that I've played have all been roguelike, like permadeath, procedurally generated.
Well, you know why it works so well for you is because they're games that you can pick up, play for a little bit, and put down and come back to anytime without missing a beat. There's no you have to re-get into it. You kind of start over every time. And they feel like they have just as much depth and sort of like, replayability or reaccessibility or whatever as some big games do.
Yeah. I really enjoy games in the ilk of Mario that are super easy to learn casually, but have an extraordinarily high skill ceiling. Because if I want to dive into a game and I'm really enjoying it, man, I will grind the ever-loving F out of a game. And, oh wait, we're past the first 30 seconds, so according to YouTube, I can swear again. but yeah, I love games like that. So I lately I've been playing Noida, which came out I think in 2020, and it is a game that was developed basically out of a tech demo known as Powder Toy, which is a pixel by pixel recreation of elements where every element or every pixel has a property, whether it's gunpowder or a chemical or a magic spell or whatever else. Every pixel can react with another pixel. And they developed it into a full-fledged game on that idea. And I've been having a lot of fun spelunking in caves and exploring that world. When I haven't been doing that, I finally got into Streets of Rogue, which I feel like I'm 4 years behind on that one as well. But been trying to get a couple of good runs in there.
That game's addicting.
Yeah,
and it's really good handheld.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at is the acceleration of development for controller-based PC games, specifically for handhelds. And now that handhelds are powerful enough to run, a lot of different titles, it's gotten me back into gaming. For the last 5 years, almost 6 years since I've been doing this channel, I gave up my hobby of PC gaming to talk about PC gaming. And it's been really difficult to find that time to fit back into my schedule. But with things like the Steam Deck, with the Aya Neo Next, the Aya Neo Air, the One X player, and now I've been grinding on the GPD WinMax 2. Man, I've just been kind of reinvigorated because I can play for 30 minutes before I go to bed. I can sit upstairs with the kids and grab a handheld, and I'm still part of the family and still interacting and everything like that. And, if there's nothing going on, I can play a game. So, yeah, it's been great.
It's great, man. It's allowed me to play games that I want to play badly, but not bad enough to sit at my desk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's been really nice. And those games are perfect for it, And for me, it was really with the introduction of the Switch. I didn't think that I would like the handheld version of the Switch or whatever. I thought I'd be playing on the TV all the time.
Yeah.
And that's just not the case. I was playing in bed. I was playing from the recliner while, my wife watched TV or whatever. It was just like,
I have caught myself on so many occasions when I've got a benchmark that I'm running, or I'm waiting for things to install or things like that. I'm still sitting at my desk. I'm sitting at a computer with either a 7820X and an RTX 3070 or my 13900K with a 3090. And I'm sitting there and I'm waiting on a process to run. And I grab a handheld and I'm sitting in my chair, just kicked back, gaming on my handheld instead. With literally less than, 5% of the gaming chops. But that's what's handy. So, no, it's been absolutely fantastic to get a little bit more freedom when it comes to that aspect.
Yeah. You might have to, it's not quite Noida or Streets of Rogue, but a roguelike that's pretty fun is Hades, if you get a chance. It's really fun.
Yeah, no, I've been meaning to really dive into Hades. My sister is nuts for it. She's actually working on a cosplay for it, and we're hoping to go to a con sometime this year. I'm probably going to do my Corvo Otano, my Dishonored cosplay, and she's got a cosplay from that game that she's fully 3D printed. She's got the belt, she's got the sword, she's got a whole bunch of other stuff from one of the characters, and looks freaking awesome. So, hoping to be able to do that sometime this year. Maybe Cherry City, maybe even Seattle. We'll see what happens, but. Anyway, we do have a super chat to get us started. Kren, thank you so much for your 2 Aussie bucks. As always, g'day, mates. As always, I'm not Ryan Reynolds.
Not Ryan Reynolds, mate.
Yeah. How dare you steal an upcoming intro to a video? I actually did that as a joke. We recorded a video the other day, and while Rett was setting up the camera, I went, welcome back to Craft Computing. As always, I'm not Ryan Reynolds. And I was just going to go straight in. And I'm like, oh, you're not recording it. Dang it. So, thanks. You ruined it. You ruined it for everyone.
Well, better not recording than recording it poorly. Or something. I don't know. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Saved you a headache.
Anyway, as some of you may or may not know, it is Mixology March here on the channel. So, in lieu of beer this month, I have been drinking cocktails. Obviously, I've only published the one video, and then last Wednesday we had Talking Heads. Hoping to get quite a few more videos out before the month is done and take full advantage of it, because, as a lot of you know, cocktails were kind of my first love. And cocktails, I think, more than beer, served as my gateway into craft beer. I was mixing cocktails long before I was a fan of beer. So, with that said, today I'm gonna mix, boy, is it misogynistic to make a cosmopolitan on International Women's Day? I didn't think of that beforehand, but I was planning on doing a Cosmo today, but it literally just struck my brain that I'm making like the stereotypical drunk white girl drink. I don't think it's misogynistic if I'm aware of the
Right. Yeah. Because if you know what the rules are, you can break
them. And I can say, I'm not making this because it's International Women's Day. I'm making it to prove that you can be a man and still drink this cocktail. It's a delicious cocktail.
In honor of international women everywhere, I am drinking
in solidarity with you. Oh God, I think I'm making it worse. Let's just make the cocktail. All right. Now, on a side note, I don't know where my shaker is, my Boston shaker is. And I was going to a party and I needed to buy a shaker. I found this awesome combination insulated mug / shaker. And instead of sealing with a metal gasket on the top, it has just a water bottle gasket, which means it separates very easily, but it still seals. And so normally I'm not a fan of Collins shakers at all, which is the strainer built into the top. I like the Boston shakers where you either use a pint glass or two metal containers and then you slap them apart. Those just work a lot better and they're a lot easier to use. This has been awesome. And I think it was like $15. That and your hands don't get cold when you're shaking it. Because it's vacuum insulated. It's awesome.
And there's no sweat on it when you're done.
Right. Yeah. Your hands literally aren't freezing to it in the moment. Politan. So we are going to start off with. Oh, and look at this. I've even got a webcam set up for it. Yeah, baby.
Oh God.
So we're gonna start off with a 1/4 ounce of lime juice. And normally I'd go fresh squeezed, but I realized I'm actually out of limes. Like, it's weird. So we got a 1/4 ounce lime juice going in. We're gonna do 3/4 ounce of an orange liqueur. In this case, I am using 03 orange liqueur. It's a pretty good one for the money. So 3/4 ounce of that going in. You can also use triple sec if you want it just a little bit drier. We're gonna do 1 ounce of cranberry juice. And for this one, don't go with 100% cranberry juice. Get a cranberry juice cocktail that has at least a little bit of sugar in it. Otherwise, you're going to need to dilute it down or add a little sweetness with some simple syrup. And lastly, for our vodka, I'm just going New Amsterdam. It's simple, it's inexpensive, and it does exactly what it needs to do. And it's fantastic in cocktails. So 1.5 ounces of that. There we go. All right. Then we're just going to give that a quick shake. There we go. And switch back to the other camera. We're just going to pour it into this fancy little kind of conical coupe that I've got here. And there we go. One Cosmopolitan. There's so much stigma around this drink because it's seen as the girls going to the nightclub drink. The, you know, obviously you've got the Sex and the City, you know, kind of made it that, gave it that name and that, that kind of air around it, but it's a darn fine cocktail when made right. So,
oh yeah, not afraid of a Cosmo.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't be going more polar opposite than you. So maybe I'm actually like the misogynistic one on International Women's Day.
What, are you gonna light a cigar while you're sitting there too?
Yeah, blow the smoke in your face.
Yeah.
But I actually forgot it was Mixology March. Luckily, I have a bottle of scotch not too far from my streaming location. And I am down to the very last remnants of my 8-year-old Lagavulin single malt scotch whiskey. Ooh. Oh, I guess it's not gonna too bright, I guess.
Lagavulin 8?
Yep, Lagavulin 8.
Good bottle. Really good bottle.
Yeah, it's really good. You know, it's like I like the 16, but I will say in the 8's defense, it is like it's like a little sweeter, little smoother. I mean, it's just overall way more drinkable in a way. Like, I prefer the 16 because it has that more bold flavor profile, but the 8's been good to me. So just a little bit left here in my glass, and then I'll probably have a beer. So
yeah.
Scotch neat is my cocktail. I know you're technically supposed to have 3 ingredients, but what are you gonna do?
Right.
I've got distilled spirits, oxygen, and a little bit of spit.
There we go. There you go. What's funny is I do have a number of bartending books and cocktail books and things like that. And one of my books in the back of it includes a section on being a good host. Like, and it's things like, don't be snobbish. If someone asks you for a drink and you have the ingredients, you make that drink because you're a good host. If they don't like cocktails, if they don't want to drink, you be a good host and respect them. Like, it's not that complicated.
Yeah.
But
the lost art of hosting, man.
Right.
That's my gig.
Right. And so in the back of the book, they include some cocktails that are beer-based. Like, they have a lager with a twist of lemon and a salted rim. Like, that was one of the cocktails that I found in the back of this book. And they end with this. Like this is their finisher. Like, be a good host. Go outside the box. Find something that your guest would like and make that. If they don't drink, don't ask them. Don't force them. Don't peer pressure them. Don't do anything like that. Be a good host. Be a good person. And I loved that. But the last cocktail in the book is literally just called a cocktail. And it's the definition of a cocktail. What is a cocktail? It's 3 ingredients. And they say, take like a half ounce of simple syrup, do 2 to 3 dashes of an Angostura bitters or an aromatic bitters of some kind, and then 1.5 ounces to 2 ounces of literally anything. It can be gin, it can be white rum, it can be spiced rum, it can be whiskey, it can be rye, it can be scotch, it can be vodka, it can be anything you want or anything your guest wants. That's a cocktail.
Oh yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite books. Actually, I'm just reading it today. 12 Bottle Bar. For those who are interested in it, David Solomon, or Solomonson, there we go. Leslie Jacob Solomonson. 12 Bottle Bar. It's a non-posh view of inexpensively making cocktails, being a good host, and all that kind of stuff. Fantastic book. Lots of recipes, but also lots of anecdotes like that. And so highly recommend. They also give you a full history of all of the spirits that they recommend. And my favorite thing about this book is in the intro, they say, we know we're going to get a lot of flack for this, but where's the tequila? In the margarita where it belongs. If you need to make a margarita, go buy a bottle of tequila. It doesn't need to be in your 12-bottle bar, though, because 99% of cocktails don't call for tequila.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, one Mixology March, I wanted a tequila cocktail, and it's the only one I've ever made myself. And it was like a ginger and Tabasco sauce cocktail. It was pretty good. But, you know, not something I would make all the time. So kind of doesn't make sense to keep it on hand.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I do keep a bottle or two of tequila around. I do have a bottle of mezcal up here. And I've talked about this before. I kind of like having mezcal on hand because you don't have to follow all of the rules of tequila. Like, champagne has to come from Champagne, France, from the wineries there. Versus if you have a sparkling wine, you can do whatever you want. The rules don't apply. Same kind of thing goes with tequila and mezcal. It's still an agave-based spirit. It's just, it doesn't have to come from agave Mexico, from the plants that are there, and it doesn't have to follow a specific distillation process. You can barrel finish it, you can cut it, you can overproof it, underproof it, you can do a lot of different things with it, and so it kind of frees up agave as a spirit, and I like it better.
Yeah. Some people are saying I'm quiet, and I was just curious if it's because I readjusted my mic a little bit, so if that didn't help at all.
Yeah.
I can also boost myself.
I also bumped you about 3 dB, so I'm hoping that
cool.
that was enough to address that.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a lot. So
yeah, cool.
Sweet.
You're still peaking at like -12. Wow. Well,
if you need me to bump a little bit,
I can give you another. Let's give you another 4.5. Let's see how that.
I don't know. He did say it was much better, so
there you go. Now you're at -8. I'm sitting right around -5 when my punches. So I think that should be a pretty good mix there.
I'll let the scotch settle in, and maybe I'll get a little louder too.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, we've spent almost 25 minutes talking about cocktails and how much I like them. Let's talk about some of the news. Starting with one that's kind of near and dear to my heart. YouTube is relaxing some of their more controversial recent policies. Back in November, this made a lot of headlines and had a lot of creator pushback. Now, most of my videos, I think I've only sworn. I don't think I've ever sworn without censoring on YouTube. I think I've said damn and hell a couple of times, but those are not in their profane list. But in general, on video, I don't use a lot of profanity. In person, that's a completely different story. But there were a lot of creators. One that comes to mind is Up Is Not Jump. Has a lot of videos where profanity is part of the humor. And you think of a lot of stand-up comedians and things like that as well. Who, if they swear in their video, they could essentially post... what's the right word? Post judiciously be demonetized. And actually, there were some creators who, as a result of this new profanity policy, lost monetization on their channel altogether. So by YouTube trying to turn everything into a PG rated website, which I think overwhelmingly kind of is. I take that back. PG-13. But for the most part, I don't let my kids on YouTube. If they're watching with me, it's a channel that I know that is going to be fine. It's something like Smarter Every Day or Slow Mo Guys. That's what me and my kids watch when we watch YouTube.
Songs for Littles. That's what we watch.
Okay, yeah. Oh gosh, what's the Shake Break one? There's I forget what channel it's on, but it's called Shake Break, and it's great.
I guess it's not, huh? As he chugs his Cosmo.
The kids love it. Anyway, since this went into effect in November, like I said, there have been a lot of creators that have been their incomes and day-to-day lives have been impacted by this because they chose to say a couple of swear words. YouTube is reportedly going to be relaxing that. However, there's some news in here that I'm also not all that thrilled about. So in November, they stated that they would flag any video that used profanity in the first 15 seconds of the video completely ineligible for monetization. Now, if you swear in the first 30 seconds, you'll be limited monetization, which essentially means no monetization, because limited to monetization means that, number one, 85% or more of the advertisers will not use you. YouTube sells those ads at a much, much lower rate. That, and YouTube will stop promoting your video. And so it will not show up in Watch Next. It won't appear on people's front pages. They'll have to go to your channel to find it. So if it's not discoverable organically, that means it's demonetized. That means it doesn't exist. So I'm still not thrilled about their language there. I'm not thrilled about anything else, but at the same time, no, I think it's just stupid in general, because I check a box that says not made for kids. I don't market myself as under 18. I don't market my content towards children. I don't market myself. My demographics show that 80% of my audience is between 25 and 45 and male. And that's just what my demographics are. So, oh, and by the way, for anyone who says, but won't you think of the children, 1.2% by my last look was under the age of 18. 1.2%.
That was just my profile.
Right.
So right. I keep it set to under the age of 18 to keep the purity going in my feed. Just nonstop blippy videos right into those weird ones with the guys dressed as Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm. How about those ones with Elsa and Anna that get strangely erotic halfway through?
Right, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Right.
Spider-Man fills up a syringe with his web goo and injects it into Elsa.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. You guys don't know what I'm talking about. Google Elsa Gate. It is
I've
surreal.
I've covered some of that. Ugh. Yeah. Well, not covered it. I've been aware of it.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah. But how will the children overclock those Chinese X79s? Think of the children. They're just going to have to understand that sometimes daddy needs a drink.
The children need V2 Xeons.
Yeah. Exactly. Some of the children profiles might be parents unknowingly using YouTube Kids accounts, and that totally could be as well. So yeah, it really sucks as a creator to basically have to follow the rules of this network, but there's no such thing as me going independent from YouTube. As a creator, I try to carry my eggs in a lot of different baskets, including monetization on other platforms. You can find me on Patreon. You can find me on Floatplane. I try to do merchandising, although I make jack off t-shirts and glassware and things like that, because you've got to price your goods affordably, and then there's the actual raw cost of the good plus shipping plus supply and everything else. So on a $20 pint glass, I might make $3. Like I'm not rolling in profit margin over here. And I've got other ways I monetize too. One of the main ways I monetize is pre-roll integrations. And so selling those 30 and 60-second ad spots at the beginning of my videos. Those are the only ad spots that I really sell. And unless someone's got really deep pockets, and then it's like, yeah, I'll do a weird one. But we offer pretty much a flat rate. Here's our 30-second price. Here's our 60-second price. Here is where we integrate it every single time. Our audience understands that this is an integration. We get pretty good results because we put effort into our pre-rolls.
Yeah, Ryan.
Yeah, right. But beyond that, or sorry, even including that, so our pre-roll ad sales fetch a certain price because of their visibility on YouTube. If I went to another platform and didn't have the same visibility, I wouldn't be able to sell those at the same price. So while, yes, I do, democratize my monetization, and I don't have all of my eggs in one basket, there's still one larger basket that kind of holds everything up. And it's like that for a lot of places, a lot of independent creators, I think Linus Tech Tips would survive at a smaller scale if YouTube died. And maybe Floatplane would then become the center for tech YouTube and things like that, and maybe it would grow from there. But that's still, at best, 10% of the eyes. At best, 10% of the eyes that you're going to get off YouTube, because not everyone's going to pay for yet another streaming service. Right. Unless they democratize that and say, instead of giving me $3 and Kyle $3 and Smarter Every Day and, Cocktail Chemistry and all the other people who are over there on Floatplane, instead of giving all of us $3 each, why don't we just do like $9.99 for a whole subscription to the entire platform? But then you just have Nebula, so what's the point? It's a weird dichotomy when you really start to break down monetization as a individual business owner, content creator, etc.
Yeah. Which is the big deal when you see people messing with these platforms, like people messing with Twitter recently, or Wizards of the Coast messing with their sort of creator platform. And it's just because, we saw it really unfold with the advent of Facebook, how Facebook had risen up, and all of a sudden all of these small businesses and sort of online shops had these highly visible marketplaces that they could reach customers all over the world for free. And then when Facebook started charging out of nowhere to have these online storefronts and business profiles and things like this, all of a sudden a lot of people were right back where they started, and with a handful of people, or less people rather, just taking a bigger and bigger slice of the pie. So I mean, that's what YouTube is. It's just kind of unfortunate that everybody's so beholden to it.
Yeah it's a frustrating place to be, because while I feel my content could stand on its own, I would lose all discovery. All discovery. Like, YouTube is how I get discovered. YouTube is why I have now 300,000 subscribers. However, it seems YouTube doesn't even feed it to all 300,000 subscribers based on the viewership that I have.
I never get notifications for it.
Right. Just because you subscribe doesn't mean you get notified. Doesn't mean it shows up in your recommended feed. And while I make a concerted effort to click on my subscriptions tab and go through and watch all of my subscriptions, or at least as many of them as I can, it's not everyone does that. Everyone is beholden to that front page and what's recommended, and then what's recommended next.
Well, even then, like, we launched a video today and I pulled up my phone to look at it, and I wasn't notified. It wasn't in my subscription tab. I was being notified of, like, I had a craft computing video on the front page, but it was like last week's stream.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was even like today's stream, like, you know, because it had been set up. But it was like I had to literally go to Craft Computing's page in order to find the video, and it had been up for like 20 or 30 minutes at that point. It was like, what the heck?
Yep. Yeah. I have notifications set up on 2 channels: Tested and How to Drink. Guess how many notifications I get for new videos? Guess how many of those videos show up in my feed? Maybe 1 or 2 every couple of weeks.
Yeah. I mean, Patreon does a better job of that.
I watch every single How to Drink and Tested video. I can't say every tested video because I don't necessarily watch all of the VR content. I don't necessarily watch all of the reviews and all of the behind the scenes stuff. But at the same time, I do watch the entirety of every single Inside Adam's Cave and any review that Norm does, anytime that Joey's done a video on there. I watch the entirety of it, beginning to end. And it never gets recommended to me. I have to go find that they posted a new video 2 weeks ago. It's like, YouTube, I'm telling you what I want to watch. But the algorithm says no.
Yeah. But see, and there's a weird dichotomy there too, because I do actually really like YouTube's discoverability algorithm in general.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I find a lot of great content that resonates, especially when you're like looking for music and stuff. But yeah, anyway, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
So the lesson is, if you'd like to be notified of Craft Computing's videos, the best way to do it is by Patreon. As little as $1 a month gets you exclusive access to the Discord server, where you can talk with me and Jeff and the other hosts from Talking Heads, and also other things, including notifications.
Including notifications that actually work. Yes. Yes. You know what else you could do to help out the channel? You can go and check out our sponsor. And today, as with every other episode, today's video is brought to you by Lenode. Hosting your own servers also means you get to host all your own problems. And even the most skilled network engineer will tell you you should decentralize your network. So why not host your services with Lenode? If it runs on Linux, it'll run on Lenode. That includes software for most of the video tutorials that I've posted on my channel, like how to run your own recursive DNS servers, VPN gateways, your own cloud-based Plex servers, and more. They offer shared CPU plans for as little as $5 per month and can scale as high as you need to go, whether it be virtualized hosting, dedicated enterprise GPUs, NVMe block storage, or more. And even if you do host your own servers, you can use Lenode to keep a backup off-site, because remember, RAID is not a backup. Lenode is also expanding at light speed, with 12 new global data centers planned before the end of 2023. Visit Lenode.com/craftcomputing and get a $100 60-day credit just for signing up for a new account. That's Lenode.com/craftcomputing, and again, a huge thanks to Lenode for sponsoring today's episode.
Excellent.
Speaking of eggs in multiple baskets,
Lenode, they help a lot.
They do.
Very, very good partners of the channel.
Yeah,
for a
long
time
friends and partners of the channel. They check in with me easily once a quarter, if not more, and ask, hey, what are you working on? Any projects we can help with? Like anything you need to do? I have spun up some Lenode instances before and kind of toyed with some stuff on hardware that I don't have access to and whatnot. It's been fun, but they are a fantastic supporter of not only my channel, but a lot of other Linux home lab server-based channels. You've got Tom Lawrence, you've got Learn Linux TV with Jay, quite a few of my personal friends and compatriots. They also support, so go give them a look.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Also home of one of my favorite ads of ours.
Mm-hmm.
Me getting blasted in the face with a smoke machine.
That wasn't in the job description, was it?
No, I wouldn't have it any other way. That was a fun ad.
That was a fun ad.
Somebody asked, how come I didn't do a beer review in my video over at Craft Extra? And I don't have a good reason for you. I joked about doing Rainier reviews at the end of every video, but yeah, I ended up shooting that video twice.
Opening yet another crisp, cold Rainier brewed right here in the Pacific Northwest.
I'm tasting Yakima Valley hops this time. I know that's a big surprise, but you really taste them in this batch.
That icy cold Cascade water brewed fresh to...
We're starting the can here at 37 degrees Fahrenheit. And but yeah, I don't have a good reason. I just didn't really feel like doing it. So
yep. Daywood, Techno Tim, LTT. Yeah, like I said, they support so many creators in this space. So, and they're really competitively priced if you've looked around at AWS or other similar hosting services. So,
yeah.
All right. Let's see. What else do we got? Acer confirms a breach of 160 gigabytes of data stolen and is now for sale on a hacking website. So, yeah, this happened in February 2023. So I'm going to give massive kudos to Acer for a very quick turnaround. Inside of 3 weeks for any kind of a data breach is pretty great as far as industry standards go. I'd like to see sub 2 weeks, but at the same time, I will also give benefit of the doubt to, you have to learn what was stolen so you can let people know what was stolen. That's part of the whole remediation process of a data breach, is learn what your problem is and then attack the issue. So yeah, inside of 3 weeks, pretty great response time. So there's not a ton of detail there. The article basically references that there is a batch of Acer 160 gigs worth of data for sale on the dark web right now. And it also references some previous issues that the company had. They were hit by the Revil ransomware gang back in March of 2021 and demanded $50 million in exchange for the decryptor. And threatened to leak confidential financial documents. And then in October 2021, they confirmed that their after-sale system in India had been breached. And over 60 gigs was stolen from their servers then, including tens of thousands of customer, distributors, and retail information. There's no word yet on exactly what was specifically stolen yet, but they do claim to have tech manuals, software tools, backend infrastructure details, product model documentation for phones, tablets, laptops, bioimages, ROM files, ISO files, and replacement digital product keys. So far, it doesn't seem like there's any personally identifiable or customer information or even, confidential information about vendors or relationships or financials or anything like that. So if this is just a bunch of stuff that may already be publicly available, it's not the end of the world. Now, infrastructure details, probably not a great thing to have leaked. Software tools, yeah, you want to keep those in-house, but that's not much of something that's going to impact the company long-term unless there's a massive back door that we don't know about. But
here's a stupid question.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I've got an imagination. I could sort of guess how this is done, but let's say I stole a bunch of information from a company like this, and I'm holding it for ransom. How am I getting paid in a way that isn't linking it back to me?
They specifically call out that they will sell data to the highest bidder, clarifying that they will only take payment in Monero cryptocurrency, which apparently is fairly hard to trace. The exchanges are pretty well guarded and encrypted. So that's how.
Gotcha. Okay.
So before it was like anonymous, leave us a $50 million check at the nearest Western Union.
Wait, is that how? But like, okay, so like,
but
remember,
you gotta cash
like,
it eventually, right?
remember, like Kaiser, right? That's what I'm thinking. Like, remember Kaiser's information was stolen and held for like a $50,000 ransom or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, and they're like, okay, we'll give you back your data or access to your data for $50,000. Like, how are they getting paid? Same thing. Was it crypto? I mean, it can't have always been crypto.
It's been crypto for a long time. And actually there have been early ransomware relied on you logging into Tor. So onion router networks and sending wiring payment over that. So
interesting.
I'm sure in some areas of the world there are money exchanges which try to keep the down low on who their customers potentially are and where their money goes and that kind of thing. I'm sure that's totally a thing. I've watched enough James Bond to assume that's a thing.
Right. So I'd be an awful cyber criminal.
Yeah. You
get caught very quickly.
Tell I'm totally legit because I have no idea.
I'm just like, please route it to my PayPal account, paypal.com/RettIsAwesome.
Right. Let me send you an invoice. Hold on. From business at Craft Computing.
Exactly. Oh, man.
Wait, is this on letterhead? Right. I wanted to make it official.
Well, for Texas.
Right.
I thought I could just launder this straight through Craft Computing.
Right.
I didn't think I had to be clever.
But I paid the taxes on it. It's not like the IRS is going to come after me. So
right. What's the big deal? You guys are getting your cut. We got a good racket here.
Right.
Let's just keep doing what we're doing.
So yeah, keep an eye out on for Acer emails if they do discover that any customer information was breached. Hopefully they will disclose that very shortly. Most of this looks like, in my semi-professional opinion, pretty innocuous stuff. So yeah, backend infrastructure, confidential product model documentation, so, disassembly or sourcing information. Yeah, I'm sure that's worth something to someone, but it's trade secrets. Your market is very slim to where the value actually lies on that and who's actually going to pay money for Acer trade secrets. Windows system deployment image files. Oh no, they got our answer files for how we deploy Windows on OEM machines. Who in the hell cares? Like, that's not exactly smoking gun material. So, interesting stuff. We do have a $5 super chat. Thank you very much, Dustin. Would you use that little motherboard with the built-in CPU to do VMs over, say, a Ryzen 2700? Actually, yeah, I kind of would. You only have 2 DIMM slots on this versus most, B450, B350 motherboards and whatnot are going to have 4 DIMM slots, but Ryzen chips also only support 128 gigs of RAM at most. That's exactly what this supports. You just have to do it in 2 DIMMs instead of 4. But this is upwards of 50% faster in most benchmarks than a Ryzen 1700/2700. And it still only draws 65 watts once I've had it tuned. If you haven't watched the video that posted just a couple hours ago, go give that a look. I go over a lot of different virtualization scenarios where this would be a good idea, where it might not fit, compatibility, drivers, all that kind of thing. It's all in that video. That being said, as a very quick synopsis for anyone who hasn't watched it yet, I am looking at actually putting 2 of these into my server rack and decommissioning one of my Haswell servers just to save on power draw. I don't need, 20 or 24 cores worth of horsepower to run my Plex server and Pi-hole and a couple of the other standard VMs that I still have running on some pretty old hardware, and getting that system draw from 250 watts down to, 100 watts, that's a pretty good proposition. So, yeah, you will definitely see at least one, probably two of these going into my server rack at some point in the very near future. I have two more on the way, so I'm going to have a total of 3 boards. I think one of them is going to go into a dedicated PC, and then 2 more are going to go into to servers. So, yes, I would recommend this board. Unless you get a killer deal on a Ryzen 1700 or 2700X or similar 8-core, 16-threaded processor, it's really hard to beat this value. If you go click on that video, the 11900H boards, both the ES and the non-ES boards, those have inflated in price pretty high. You could still get the 11900H board for like 195 or 220 or somewhere right in that range. However, the 11800, which is still an 8-core 16-thread based on the same tech, it's just 200 megahertz slower. That board you can still pick up for $140, and I have a link in the description of that video for that board with, I think it said hundreds available. So they're not sold out yet. It's just the board that I happen to look at. The exact model is sold out or unobtainable at this point. So go give that a look. Speaking of Intel, Intel has reportedly finished or finalized their node production, basically the blueprints on how they're going to do node production for both 2 nanometer and 1.8 nanometer CPU dies. And we may be seeing consumer level chips as early as next year. So that's the 20A and 18A nodes finalized. This is pretty big news from a company who took the better half of a decade to get off of 14 nanometer and still struggled to get into 10 nanometer. Hasn't done anything with 7 yet. To all of a sudden go like, yeah, we're just going to leapfrog the industry and go straight to 2 nanometer. That's kind of nuts. Now, when you think about it, Intel was for basically my entire life the predominant chip manufacturer on the planet as far as process node and level of technology goes. I mean, Intel's main fabrication plant is right here in my backyard, here in Hillsboro, Oregon. Yeah, the idea of them being able to shrink down process nodes down to 2 nanometer and start producing chips as early as the second half of 2024, that's a pretty mind-boggling jump to go from 10 nanometer to 2 nanometer. That's a factor of 5 when it comes to density. Like, we as a people, as the technology crowd, still get excited when Moore's Law happens. Like, oh my god, it's 50% faster or 50% more efficient or whatever. Like, or, it's that, those exponential level leaps. Like, ooh, we get really excited. We're excited about 20% IPC out of, Zen 4 processors and whatnot. Man, I don't know necessarily that they're going to be ready to be producing consumer chips on 2 nanometer, but the idea that they're going to start rolling off a production fab in some way, shape, or form is very exciting. I don't know whether or not they'll be available for purchase or if this is going to be qualification processes or whatever else, or if they're going to be doing core x86 64 based products at all, or if these are going to wind up as chipsets or network cards or NAND or some other technology that's in Intel's hat. But pretty interesting stuff. The really curious thing here is now that Sapphire Rapids is a thing. Sapphire Rapids is the platform that should have come out all the way back in 2018. and believe it or not, was pretty much always planned to have tiles, chiplets. Sapphire Rapids is now on the market. You can now go buy chips, both in the server class chip and on the workstation now. And they've kind of proved that they figured out how to do the tiles, how to do chiplet style design, take a lot of smaller devices, tie them together with a unified backend cache and memory system, tie together their PCI Express devices and lanes, and eliminate NUMA node bifurcation and all that kind of stuff, and put out a product that works as a unified processor. What if instead of doing 2 chiplets or 4 chiplets or even 6, what if it's going to be like 20? What if they don't have to necessarily get the best yields out of a wafer? What if their wafers produce hundreds of dies instead of dozens, and they're able to bin the best ones, and they can put, 10 or 12 or 18 or 20 chiplet style dies, but much smaller dies than we think of now on 7 nanometer fab, onto a unified piece of silicon. That's got me excited.
Pretty crazy.
So, Meteor Lake, which is the successor to Rocket Lake, should be entering the market by the end of 2023. It's currently slated for Q4 2023. And then 20A and 18A chips could be appearing late 2024, or possibly right at the beginning of 2025. So that would be Arrow Lake and Lunar Lake production.
Crazy stuff. Crazy we're looking at releases already in 2025. It's like,
right? Doesn't that hurt?
It hurts a lot.
Ugh.
What are you gonna do?
Drink.
Speaking of which, I did move on from my
into
my scotch. I'm drinking a Widmer drop top amber ale now.
Oh, there you go. It's a solid option.
Oh yeah, solid Oregon showing, my friend.
Yes.
It's a really solid amber ale, and it's almost empty, so I'll have to open another one. But
well, I've been kind of holding off, but it has been an hour now, so I think I'm going to mix up my second cocktail. Rett, I'm going to give you the floor for about 10 or so seconds. Maybe you can intro the mushroom PC.
Yeah, why not? Let's do that.
Yeah, and I'm going to go dump out the ice, clean up my mixer real quick, and I'll be back in just a second.
Yeah, so like Jeff said, in the spirit, mushrooms are big in the public consciousness right now. In Oregon, we passed, some legislation about therapeutic psilocybin. The Last of Us is pretty entertaining on HBO, based off of, the Naughty Dog game. And now scientists have used mushrooms. In fact, I think it's the same type of fungus that they reference in Last of Us, cordyceps. Maybe I'm wrong. To create a living computer. They used like the mycelial connections, and those of you guys who have watched, I think they talk about this in Star Trek Discovery. I haven't watched it yet, but Paul Stamets, the mycologist, he discovered these connections between mushrooms that allow them to exchange information between mushrooms. I mean, I guess it's just between fungi in general. Mushrooms are like the reproductive thing. Getting really in the weeds here. Getting really in the mushroom spores here. But anyway, they used these connections in the fungus to transfer information to make a computer of some sorts. And you can see in the image here, when Jeff gets back, kind of what they did. There you go. Yeah. Now they're not transferring like immense amounts of data. You know what I mean? But they were able to do it. Oh yeah. No, you're
There
not.
we go.
Well, I can hear you.
You could hear me, but I muted myself in OBS because I was
like, yeah, way to go, bro, for sure.
Sorry. The funny thing about this is TechSpot tried to make a science fiction callback and say like bionics or
Cybernetics.
biological mixed with cybernetic. Way ahead of you, Skull. Haha.
For once.
Right. Science fiction has been mixing biological and cybernetic components and technology for generations. Like look at Star Trek. In shows like Star Trek, where the blind character Geordi LaForge had a visor that allowed him to see, like in video games like Deus Ex. How about the fact that both Next Generation and Voyager introduced us to gel packs, which were literally bioorganic CPUs that they used throughout the ship? Like, they're not talking about cyborgs here. They're talking about using organisms, organic material as data transference or processing devices. And that's not attaching a visor to Geordi's face. That's a biocell or a biopack that goes into the conduit in a Jeffries tube in Star Trek Voyager. That's what that is.
Well, and they're part of what they're interested in this TechCrunch article is the implications that it has for biological interfacing. Not necessarily that it is that. I think that they did kind of a poor job with that. But what's interesting is, I was talking about this when you weren't here, is that fungus already does this in nature with this network of fine hair-like tubes called mycelia.
Mycelia, yeah.
And what's crazy is that like trees have learned to interface with the mycelia and use the mycelia to send signals to other trees. For example, like a mother tree might send signals to their offspring during times of drought or times when nutrients aren't as readily available and things like this. And so it's like, this is kind of already what the mycelia is being used for in nature. And so then to use it in order to transfer like ones and zeros and things like this across a PCB is like kind of interesting. So I think the technology can only, continue to advance. Who knows where it's headed or what it's going to do. The scientists in this article themselves, they say it's more of just a proof of concept than anything. I don't think that they personally thought that they were breaking any ground necessarily, but like, here it is. It's done. Now we can keep chipping away.
Yeah.
So yeah, fungus is really fascinating.
Yes. All right. So for my second cocktail, this one is, I don't think really rooted in anything. It's a lot of my self-made cocktails, my homemade recipes. They're simple 3 and 4 ingredient cocktails, and this one's kind of no different. I don't have a name for this one, just like my gin inspired old fashioned last week. But this one is a little bit of a take on a rum drink. So again, got my shaker set up there. We're gonna do 2 ounces of a white rum, and again, keeping this all nice and simple and affordable, just some Bacardi White. Fantastic bottle. specifically for cocktails that I really do enjoy. If I'm going to drink rum straight, I'll definitely go a little bit fancier, but for cocktails, I don't think there's much of a reason to go beyond Bacardi White. So 2 ounces of that. We're going to do 2 ounces of pineapple juice. There we go. And by the way, if you want to buy pineapple juice in bulk, get it in these little 6-ounce cans, because you don't have to open like a 40-ounce thing of pineapple juice and then use it inside of 2 days before it goes bad. You can buy these in cases for like $25. So the cans are about $1 a piece, but you're only going to use $1 of cranberry juice of pineapple juice at a time. So
yeah, but then you're missing out on a lot of pineapple juice, because it is really good.
Right. I love pineapple juice, but I also don't love pineapple juice that much. So
well, sounds like a personal problem.
Yeah. Then we're going to do about a 1/2 ounce of simple syrup, just for a little bit of sweetness. And then the thing that makes this cocktail kind of work is we're going to do right around 2 spoonfuls, somewhere between a dash and a splash of lime juice. So just get yourself a couple of bar spoons full of lime juice there. And then, just like before, we're going to top it and shake. And shake this one really strong. And you'll see why in a second.
And if anybody wants to smile, go back, find the videos of craft computing we did, sponsored by Shaker and Spoon, where we recorded Jeff shaking a cocktail in slow motion.
In super slow motion, yeah. The reason you shake this so much is look how creamy it makes the pineapple juice. That's what the lime juice is for. It does to the pineapple juice kind of what shaking an egg white does. I know emulsifying is not the right word, but
it's like frothy.
But it makes it very frothy, and it makes the entire drink super creamy. And it makes for a really fantastic and palatable cocktail. Number one, it's freaking gorgeous. It's really easy to make. And this is a drink that you can make for, you know, people who ordinarily would drink Bud Light, but it's like, oh, you're making cocktails? You know, I might enjoy something like that. And yeah, here's a little rum and pineapple juice. And without going to like the over syrupy and sugary orange juice and pineapple juice 50-50 with white rum and calling it a Mai Tai, you can give them something that has a little bit more character, and it's actually quite a bit smoother. So,
and I'm just drinking another Widmer drop top.
Yep. So I don't make a lot of original recipes, and like I said, I just kind of came up with this one going like, I know lime reacts a little bit with pineapple juice. I wonder if I could do something with that in cocktail form. And so you get this nice meringue-like head on the cocktail. And like I said, it makes the entire thing just creamy and smooth, but it's still that pineapple tartness, and the rum breaks through it too. Like it's not without a little bit of a boozy taste. And it's a great, great summertime drink. Not necessarily a great drink when it's still snowing outside, but...
You know, one time Jeff made an original cocktail, and he used this really interesting Oregon-based gin that used some other type of plant to flavor the gin. And I can't remember what the rest of the cocktail was, but he was like, man, this would be so great to have, like, we should come up with a name for this. And I was like, Jeff, it's the Origin.
It's the Origin, right. That's actually not that far. Basically, I made the same cocktail last week, where I do a little bit of the Midori.
Screw me, right?
Right. But I did a barrel finished gin on that one, and it's still a fantastic drink. And it's a little more oaky, but if you want to taste like what it smells like to drive through Eastern Oregon in the high desert, with all the juniper and spruce trees and things like that, there's a gin called it's made by Vivacity, and it's called
and with spruce instead of juniper.
Exactly. Yeah, it still has juniper in it, but it's more spruce based, and it's fantastic. It's made by Vivacity. They're a distillery out of Corvallis, Oregon, and it's called the Oregon Native Gin, and it tastes like what Oregon smells like, at least high desert, non-valley Oregon, and it's fantastic.
You made those back in Craft Studios 1.0 for like the first Mixology March we did.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was that long ago.
Yeah, no, it was.
Crazy.
That was back right around the time that I was doing the whiskey cooled PC.
Whiskey cooled with the what was that, 8?
Benchmark number 8.
Benchmark number 8. How did I remember the number 8? That's ridiculous.
Yep. Old benchmark.
For some reason, that I was thinking that the 8 though had to do with bull riding. Because they say 8 seconds. 8 seconds is how long you have to ride a bull for.
Yeah. It's not a Capriana, but it does look delicious. I love Capriana. I've actually made a Caprishka on the show before. That was in Craft Studios 2.0. I did a Caprishka for a video, and that's a delicious one as well. In fact, I think it was the first drink that I made in the new studio when I built the studio upstairs at my old house.
Nice.
In the non-air conditioned. Holy freaking crap! What a mistake that was.
Yeah, got pretty warm up there.
Yeah,
it's all right though. I like it warm. You know me.
There was a great. That was back when we still did in-person shows, back before the dark times.
Before it all went to crap.
Yeah. And I had a portable air conditioner unit, so a floor unit with the exhaust hose that goes up to your window. But my window, the studio was above the garage, was horribly insulated. And so in July and August, it would just bake. And because I was in the middle of farmland, I caught sun from 6 in the morning until 9 at night. Like there's never a time the sun did not have direct access to that window. It was awful. And because I was above the garage, there was a secondary roof that came down over the front of the garage to extend that out from the front of the house a little bit, but that came up and met about halfway up the wall. So my windows were still 3.5, 4 feet off the ground. So to get the exhaust tube from a floor, rolling mobile air conditioner, it was a little tricky. On one such occasion, the exhaust hose fell off of the air conditioner. Sometime after I turned it on at 7 in the morning and left for work and came home at 4:30 in the evening, and it was literally 102 degrees in my office. On a Wednesday before I had to do a show.
Finally be able to take off my sweater there.
So that was me and Steve. We had to do a show. I think by the time the show ended, it was only 95.
I mean, that's what rain air is for. Get your electrolytes, your hydration, and some cold liquid.
Yep.
That's awful. I do remember there was one time we were doing the show and you were like opening the window and I was like, dude, are you sure? What about like because you had some noisy neighbors across the street, and you're like, I don't care.
What was really nice is in the evenings, because the house was north-south facing, and I had a balcony on the other side, I could open the doors and then open the window, and we got air just shooting through that place. And so I could cool it off after the sun went down in a matter of like 2 or 3 minutes. But it was awful the rest of the day.
Yeah. I liked that house. It was nice. It was cozy.
Nice. Yeah, it was very cozy. It was a house that had way too much room. Like it was a 2,000 square foot house, but it also managed to have each individual room be just slightly too small to do anything with. Terrible layout. Low ceilings, 7'10" ceilings. They weren't even they didn't even give me the full sheet of plywood. They went 7'10". And so I constantly felt like I was ducking in that house being 6'5". And I didn't realize how uneasy it made me having low ceilings like that, but it does start to feel a little claustrophobic when you're kind of a big guy like I am. We moved into our new house, and my lowest ceiling is 8'8", I think. Like, I can stand up downstairs, put my arms straight up, and barely be able to touch the ceiling. It's almost 9 feet tall in my basement. It's insane.
Yeah, I saw you yesterday. We were doing some filming, and you like reached up and you were adjusting the light, and I was like, I would have needed a stool for that.
Right? My basement ceiling is actually higher than my main floor ceiling by like 6 inches. And then I have a 10-foot ceiling in my living room. And I didn't understand what it was to feel claustrophobic or cramped in or whatever else until I got out of that old house. And now I just feel comfortable and cozy in the new place. Like, it's such a night and day difference once you realize, I feel like the walls are kind of closing in on me. Oh, they were.
Yep.
So.
Classic. Good times back then.
Yeah. Yeah. Little walk down memory lane. It's been a good 6 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's crazy because like this is like, you know, Craft Studios, I guess like what's this technically 4.0. You got like
I'm
1
call it 3 because
you had like 1 and then like 1.1.
Right. Well, I had what I'll call Craft Studios like 0.8. And that was the one above the bar. I did shoot 1 episode in my garage, and if you thought it was hot in the upstairs above the garage, I shot 1 video in August in my garage where it was 105 at 10 o'clock at night. That was actually the average gamer's PC. The video where I took the Steam hardware survey and went like, what's the average computer on here, based on not just on like the median, like, because I could have just done, oh, it's a GTX 1060 because more people have that card than any other card. But when it only makes up 3% of the market, it doesn't make sense to do it on that. And so I actually took the top 20 of all of the hardware. And what I found was it was a 4-core, 4-threaded system with the GPU power of right around a GTX 760. Much, much older than just glancing at the survey might have you believe. And that was the top 20 cards that made up, I think, 78% or something like that of Steam hardware, if I'm remembering from 5.5 years ago. But so yeah, so you're taking out all of the, you know, outliers, and you're just focusing on the bulk of what's left. Yeah, what you're left with was quite a bit different than a GTX 1060.
Interesting. Yeah, I never thought about Above the Bar as early Craft Studios, but it was.
Mm-hmm. Yep, did the first 8 or so videos there, and the very first Talking Heads.
Yeah.
And then we went into did 1 episode in the garage, and then I did that 1 episode, and the very next day I drove to IKEA and bought 3 countertops and built myself a Paul's Hardware style desk down in our den, complete with a wood stove right in the center of that room. It was ridiculous. And I couldn't film at all when anyone was awake, because any creak or groan or anything just carried throughout that entire house. And so kids had to be asleep. Wife had to be upstairs, not watching TV downstairs. Like, okay, I'm going to film now. And so I would go to work, and I would work 10 hours. I was working 410s at the time, and I would come home, and 10:30, I would turn on the camera and shoot a video.
Crazy. They're wondering what this binder behind me is. Somebody says it's Morrowind cheat codes.
You don't need a binder for that.
No, it's all up here.
Yeah.
I honestly don't remember what it is, but I am curious. I have to know. I'll just do a quick sneak peek myself.
Okay.
It's driving me crazy.
On a scale of 1 to yes, are we about to get demonetized?
No, it's my wife's old work stuff.
Hmm.
I don't know what it's doing on this shelf, but
All right.
well, there you go. Sorry, I thought it'd be more exciting than
Yeah.
that.
All right. Windows 12 set to be a thing, likely to focus on new AI-powered features. If Bing wasn't an indication enough, with Bing integrating ChatGPT as not necessarily a search engine, but more of a help you find the right phrase or right query to ask of Bing to get more information. Intel and Microsoft seem to be planning and prepping for an unannounced Windows 12, according to The Verge. And the leaker is known as Leaf Hobby, which of course I can't follow, can't view the tweets. So
that's a bummer.
Oops. There we go. Open it back up and now go back. Hey, all right. Dang it. Hey, there we go. The main news about this is it's going to be basically packed with some AI features integrated into it. How much of that happens on the hardware versus how much happens in the cloud is powered by Bing or whatever else. Definitely up to your imagination, but I'm going to guess more of the latter, less of the former, because you can't exactly sell consumers on the AI future if you're selling them, Celeron 5105, base netbooks, essentially. So I'm assuming they're going to be working a lot on search and autocomplete and things like that, things that can actually help you on a day-to-day basis, but it's going to be backed by the power of the cloud with ChatGPT and Bing. Which makes a lot of sense given the leap that AI has made as of late, as far as natural speech recognition, natural sentence framing, and things like that. Those are not easy things to crack. And while ChatGPT isn't perfect, it's definitely a tool that can be used in a myriad of different areas. So love it or hate it, AI is going to be here to stay, because it's an incredibly powerful tool. And yes, there's a lot of negative things that can come from AI. Yes, there's a number of different misuses of the technology, but you can say that about anything technologically related. There's always negatives that can come with it.
I mean, look at how great NFTs have been. It has revolutionized. No, though,
thanks,
like
Ubisoft.
I know. It's so funny seeing. I saw a tweet thread the other day about they're like, imagine the thrill of competitive gaming when you see when you're watching somebody streaming, their world championship competitive game match, and they're extracting with an item that's worth $100,000. And I was like, that's the type of stuff people literally like when they're done. That's like, oh, I bet it all and I lost. I'm time to be done.
Yep. Do you know why I don't play online anymore? It's because I don't have time to play online to get good enough to GG myself, to be able to compete at a level that even seems like it'd be enjoyable. And I know they have matchmaking and whatnot, but I don't go online to be competitive. I go online because I wanted to have fun with my friends, or I wanted to enjoy a game. And because everything has become a competition, because you can't just get into a casual match of CSGO or something like that, it means I no longer like CSGO. I don't want to be you know, batting 30%. That to me is not enjoyable, especially when it's like, oh, we won a match, cool, now I'm gonna lose the next 4 because it jumped me up, you know, 2 places in my rank or whatever else, and so now I've got to go get my ass kicked for a couple of rounds. That's not enjoyable to me. And I'm not learning anything because I can't play the game long enough to build up that skill base. And there's a lot of people like me. So I've basically abandoned all online games outside of like direct, hey, Rett, do you want to play Tales from the Borderlands or something like that?
Right.
You know, like, hey, let's do a Tiny Tina's campaign. I'll play with friends.
Yeah, that's different.
Right.
I spent one time we did the math and it turned out that I had spent over 2% of my waking life playing Dota. And you know, which was cool. I loved playing Dota.
That seems
I have no
low.
regrets. Well, actually, no, it was 2% of my entire life, and it was like 4 or 5% of my waking life, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. We did the math on it on my podcast, Game Devs Quest, which you can find at gamedevsquest.com. But anyway, the point being is that, like, yeah, I don't really regret any of that time or anything like that. But man, you should hear me the way I sound. It's like, you know, I've got a foul mouth and all this sort of stuff, but it's like, I don't like being necessarily a mean person, but I was like a pretty mean person when playing those games. And like,
yeah,
especially to my friends, you know, and it's everybody could take it. None of it. It's not like any of us aren't friends anymore or anything like that over this game. But I just one day was thinking like, man, I can't believe I talked to my best friend that way, you know, over a game.
And that's the only thing. When the only interaction that you get with other people online is competitive, it makes you become bitter and competitive and angry. And it's breeding all of those kinds of emotions out of you. When I play games to be an escape, I don't want that kind of, you know, I used to be the guy who would throw a controller across the room when I lost. Like I was totally that guy 20 years ago, and I hated that guy. That guy was an asshole. And not that I'm any less of an asshole, but I'm an asshole.
Don't play those games.
Right. You know, yeah. I will say kudos to Logitech for their Generation 1 Xbox controller, the wireless wave or Wingman or whatever it was. That thing was a friggin' tank, and man, it left more dents in the wall than you could count. But yeah,
you know,
playing online and allowing myself to kind of feed into that competitive nature, and I'm very competitive as a person. Me and my family even play board games and card games literally every night. We will sit down to dinner around the table and we will play Uno, or we've been playing Mantis Shrimp lately, or Exploding Kittens, or you know, Bears versus Babies, you know, all the popular, you know, kind of games like that. We'll sit down and we'll play those games, and we're trying to teach our kids good sportsmanship through it. Sometimes you win and sometimes you lose, and sometimes you get your ass kicked, and we don't let our kids off the hook easy. We, you know,
no, there's been some savage games.
I will totally blindside my kids with like slam attacks on Exploding Kittens and things like that. It's like, you got to learn somehow. Although your proudest moments as a parent are when your 5-year-old turns it around and just smacks you down. It's like, yes. But you breed that competitiveness, but also the good sportsmanship that comes along with it.
Yeah,
and
the good sportsmanship is key.
Learning how to lose, but also learning how to win, and
it goes. And it's hard. That's the hard part about esports competitive games in general when you're playing online, is that the people you're playing against are faceless, and so good sportsmanship is a lot harder to come by. When you got to look across the table, it's a lot easier, you know. And that's one thing I'll say is that, like, you know, somebody said in the chat, like, you played that much Dota, but like 10% was Morrowind, right? I love Morrowind. It doesn't even come close to the amount of hours I put into Dota 2,
right? Because
I could just play the same game over and over and over and over and over and over and over, and practice and hone and get good and do all these types of things. But like, when it was all said and done, it was like all of this toxicity. One thing is I can't really go back and play online all that easily. I've done it a couple times, but whenever we get enough to do a 10-person game and get full 5v5 teams on,
right,
it's fun when you get all your friends together to do it.
Yeah.
And you can just randomize teams, mix and match, or do captains and change it up every single time. Man, we're all goofing off and we're all getting in each other's heads. There's some friendly banter and trash talk, and you're trying to do all that. Like, it doesn't get more fun than that.
Right.
But doing it against strangers, you know, it's like you begin to build resentment, you begin to do all this. And maybe it's not that way for everybody.
You start to build the animosity against literally anyone who competes against you. And
yeah,
it, like I said, I don't play casually online anymore. I just don't.
Right.
Brandon says that he has iRacing where he's still good enough to race competitively and matchmaking, but any other game he doesn't even bother. I can occasionally jump into Rocket League and get into some ranked matches and still do okay. I can still kind of hold my own. I don't grind Rocket League. I can do a couple decent aerials. I'm really good. We
had fun at PDX Land.
Right. I'm really good at pool, which kind of instinctively makes me good at Rocket League because I can see those angles develop. Like I can see, okay, if the ball lands here, if I hit it here, I can get that ricochet shot and go exactly where I want, or set the shot up the way I want. And I played basketball, in high school and whatnot, and you kind of get some of that, cause reaction kind of stuff going on, and I do okay. I'm not the greatest Rocket League player by any stretch of the imagination, but I can hold my own in a competitive ranked match. And
what's fun about Rocket League, in my opinion, is it can be just ridiculous enough sometimes that the losses don't feel like a burden.
Yes.
You're just like, whatever.
Right.
That game was ridiculous. I didn't have control on that the whole time.
Right. Like I was holding on by a shoestring and one got by me, and you know what? That's the way it goes. And it's kind of why I like watching soccer. Like, it's the same kind of thing. You going back to the World Cup this last year where, the US held serve against Britain and whatnot. And you felt like the US was the better team the whole time, but then Britain advanced. And it's like, yeah, they made the goals when they needed to. And that's the way the dice fell.
That's the game. Yeah. Got a super chat here. Green Protagonist, $5. Set up a virtual machine with Launchbox, replacing Windows Shell, and Parsec set to launch parallel. It runs surprisingly well and boots very quickly. Amen. Couldn't have said it better myself.
That could be fun. I've been using, is it Play Night? Yeah, one sec. On one sec.
Oh boy. Well, Green Protagonist, I have nothing intelligent to say about this, so I'll just keep talking about games, I guess. I wish I hadn't spent that much time playing Morrowind. Now, see, and what might surprise a lot of you guys, I spent a lot of time playing Dota 2, obviously, like well over 10,000 hours. I have spent many hours playing Morrowind. You might be surprised to know that I have spent more hours playing Oblivion than I have Morrowind.
I'm not surprised by that. It's a better game.
I don't think it's a better game, but it is a ton of fun, and I don't regret a moment of it.
Yeah, I have more hours in Oblivion than I do in Skyrim, and I've got a lot of hours in Skyrim. I've got 350 in Skyrim. I probably have 500 in Oblivion.
Do you have any more over there you're done with?
Just that, but it's not a dishwasher one.
Yeah. I have probably got like 700 hours in Oblivion or something ridiculous. It might be getting closer with Morrowind lately because I haven't played Oblivion in years. And I've played a lot of Morrowind within the last 5 years compared to the other Elder Scrolls anyways. Skyrim, I kind of missed the boat. I didn't have a PC that could run it.
Yeah.
When it came out. I did manage, thanks to my friends in Russia, to play it without.
It's on GOG now. It's on GOG.
Oh, there we go. Yes.
I actually do own it on GOG. So.
Well, good. Okay, there we go. I finally owned Skyrim, but when I put all my hours into it, it was because of my friends. They were very kind.
Yeah.
Uh,
I don't want to mention how many times I've bought a license to play Skyrim because it's a lot. I know I bought it on release and I bought every DLC as it came out. I then bought the special edition because I wanted it kind of all bundled up in one. I think I got the Legendary Edition for free because I had it on Steam. I bought at least 2 physical copies, one to have and one to give away. I bought a physical copy of Skyrim for my brother-in-law. And then when it was released on GOG, I bought the special edition again, so I would have it as a DRM free. I don't have to have Steam or anything else. I can keep a local installer, and if I just want to play it on a system, I don't necessarily have to have Steam installed on the system. I can just install Skyrim. And that's valuable to me, having an official DRM free copy. And if a company's going to release games DRM free, I'm going to support it. I'm going to show I will still pay you money for this title, even though you're taking a risk. We're meeting in the middle, going, I'll still give you money if you cut the secure ROM shit out of our transaction.
Right.
I think Horizon Zero Dawn is a decent game. Now, Sony fans are going to hate me. I think it's a decent game. But at the same time, Sony releases Horizon Zero Dawn on GOG. I'm a day one buyer because I support the crap out of that.
Yeah.
And you put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty good game. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
I
Brandon,
enjoyed it. I don't think there's a lot of replayability. I thought it was a little bit too linear for being an open world game. And it held your hand for way too long.
Yeah.
But it was enjoyable. I didn't dislike my time playing through that one.
Brandon Trost says Skyrim's the best of the 3. It's simply the most modern game. And he goes on to say Oblivion is still playable. Morrowind is unplayable by modern standards. And I was just hoping to get some clarification on what that means, because
I've made that argument with you before. Now here's the deal. They still didn't know what to do as far as control scheme for Oblivion when it came out. If you remap controls, it's better.
For Oblivion?
For Morrowind.
Yeah.
For Morrowind, the controls are heinously bad.
This was something I noticed. I was reading a Twitter thread today that talked about part of what was confusing about when Morrowind came out was that there was this big push to get some of these big computer RPGs onto console.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have Morrowind on PC, but I played it on Xbox. And then there was extra confusion there when you couldn't get the expansions on Xbox. You had to buy the Game of the Year edition, which wasn't any skin off my back. I bought Morrowind and then I bought the Game of the Year edition later from GameStop for like $15 or something like that. But what was interesting is and this thread said that the UI was unusable on console and the text was too small. I'm like, man, I just almost made the case in the video. I didn't go this far because I didn't want to make the comparison between the PC version and the Xbox version in the Morrowind video I did for Craft Extra. But it was like, I almost went as far to say is that like the Xbox version, in my opinion, is like the definitive edition. Because the controls were good. The UI was way more manageable on Xbox than it was on PC, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Brandon has clarified. What I mean is Morrowind isn't going to hold your hand. There's not much in the way to navigate without a guide and without writing down notes. And I will say it is simply an RPG from a different time. Because if you look at all of the RPGs that came before it, if you look at your Black and White, if you look at what else came before Morrowind? I mean, even Bethesda's own, you got Daggerfall, you got games like that. They were all based on Dungeons and Dragons, and those were games that you had to take serious notes for. You had to ask the right person the right question in order to get the quest that you were seeking, or the answer that you needed, or the specific item to further a quest. And it was really up to you to explore the world and discover all of that. And you can take that as a positive or as a negative when you compare it to modern games, where if you look at some of there's a great meme that goes around about the dungeon layouts in Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim, where Morrowind is just all over the map, and there's hundreds of dead ends and wild goose chases that you go on because...
Well, and there's some dungeons too that you can only explore if you can fly,
right?
And things like that,
right?
Which is
you have
confusing.
to have the correct abilities to progress. Whereas Oblivion, they had a couple of dead ends, but they had one guaranteed main path, and you would pop out the other side. And then in Skyrim, they had like 0 offshoots. It was literally walk through a dungeon that you're going through. And
once you got to the end, it took you back.
And miraculously, there's a door that leads to within 50 feet of the entrance that you came in.
Exactly.
And some people dislike that. Some people like it. I think it's great game mechanics to not have to backtrack all of your steps to make it back to the entrance. Especially if you're keeping your own map, especially if you're writing down all of your own notes. And I certainly don't have the time to give Morrowind a proper playthrough anymore, because while I did play Morrowind when it was out, I didn't sink 1,000 hours into it. I played it enough to get the main story, to get the lore, to understand the world, and gave it 2 or 3 or 4 playthroughs. But do I know all of the ins and outs of every single quest and character and item and requirement and skill tree? No.
Well, Jeff, that's because it would take multiple characters, multiple save files, as I go over in the Craft Extra.
Right. Whereas Oblivion, I spent a lot more time in, because in a single playthrough, I could explore everything. And instead of starting a new campaign, why would you want to grind through and get back to level 35 and reclaim all of your old stuff, or you figure out a different build, when you can just keep progressing your current build?
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's kind of interesting. And
it depends on what you're
Brandon
after.
It's funny that Brandon brought this back into like a point that I'm totally okay with. He's
Right.
like, no, I was just talking about the design stuff. I'm talking about the game itself.
Right.
I had all these arguments locked and loaded, but
I know you did. And like I said, I've always gone to Morrowind is one of the least modern feeling RPGs that you could still play today.
What's interesting enough though is, and I talked about this a little bit in the Craft Extra video, like one of the things I loved, I'd never played a FromSoft game, FromSoft, whatever, the people that made Dark Souls and Elden Ring. I'd never played one of their games before until Elden Ring came out. And like one of the things that blew me away when I played Elden Ring was like, oh my God, I have to like play this game. I have to pay attention. Do I have to have a notepad on my desk?
Right.
Do I have, and I was like, this is like Morrowind in so many ways.
Yeah.
In other ways, it's not even comparable, right? But it has that vibe of like, you're going to have to reverse engineer this game in order to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the things that I think really does set Morrowind apart.
Right.
And is actually the thesis of my video on Craft Extra. If you haven't watched it yet, on our sister channel, our daughter channel, I don't know what it is, but our secondary channel.
Second channel, I think, is the proper nomenclature.
I don't know. I was just trying to humanize it, I guess,
Yeah,
personify it. But on our second channel, that was the whole thesis of my video, is that in Morrowind you have to reverse engineer the game, and in Oblivion and Skyrim you don't.
Right.
And I don't think that means that Oblivion or Skyrim are worse games. And like I said earlier, I put more hours into Oblivion than I did in Skyrim.
I also feel that you can reverse engineer Skyrim to a greater extent than you can Oblivion. Maybe not Morrowind, because Morrowind, man, the exploits are sky high as far as,
right.
Hey,
yeah.
Do you want to jump half the map at a time?
Yeah.
Here you go. They took out some of the progression of athletics and things like that. And I think a simplified approach made it as successful of a game as it ended up being. There's a reason.
I mean, it's a great game.
That's fantastic. There's no saying it's not. But when you can't necessarily sink the amount of time and money that it would cost to make Morrowind successful today on the same scale. And what I mean by that is gaming is a much wider appeal, and like it or not, the stakes as far as financials for companies are much higher than they were in 2001.
Right. And that's the big bummer, you know, and that's why you get, and that's why
you get Call of Duty, and that's why you get, you know, the repeatable franchise games.
And even with Skyrim, which I think is a fantastic game, it's why you go from Morrowind that has flying and giant mushrooms and fleas that you ride and weird imagery about hermaphroditic gods wielding their phalluses as weapons, to then Skyrim,
that
which
was
is
just me in the shower.
Sorry, I got my lore confused.
Right. Wrong video.
But then you go to Skyrim, which, and this isn't it's kind of a knock now, but when I was playing Skyrim, I didn't really care about it all that much. But now you have literally just like Westeros. You have castles, knights, and dragons. And like, that's Skyrim. You know, it doesn't get more like traditional fantasy than that.
Right.
Whereas, you know, and that's partially because there was so much more money on the line, you know,
right.
Like you have all of this stuff. Well, let's go for the tried and true stuff. Everybody likes dragons. Everybody likes this, and more Elder Scrolls dragons in general are cool. They're a good take on it. But like, guess what? When they're flying over you and breathing fire, it's not like you're thinking, well, these are the keepers of time. You know, you're not thinking about the lore implications. You're just thinking like, here's a giant fire breathing lizard flying over me that I have to kill.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway. Green Protagonist says, if you want old school RPG, I recommend Tunic. And I think it was Green Protagonist himself who recommended Tunic on this stream. Maybe somebody else, I don't know. But not on this stream, but on the show. No. And I went out and bought Tunic, and that game slaps so hard. It is so fun.
It's a great game.
It's the perfect handheld title.
Yeah.
I played on my Steam Deck all the time. It is so fun.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, just from the production standpoint, if you look at game studios and what they were and what the expectations were in 2002, they were vastly different than what they were in 2011. And they're vastly different than what they are today. By the way, Skyrim came out in 2010.
2011.
11, sorry. That's right, 11. Okay. But still 12 years ago.
I know, it was still a long time ago. I know, I waited in line for it with my roommate.
Right. But Morrowind sold 4 million copies. Fantastic, right? How many?
I don't know how many Oblivion sold, but Skyrim at this point has sold 30 million.
Yeah. Like I said, different stakes.
Yeah.
4 million copies. That's a good game. That's a really good game.
Yeah.
Skyrim sold 30 million copies.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting but also look at how vastly, right. And I think this plays into your greater point too, is like the gaming community at large is that much bigger as well.
Right.
You know, and it's
the
not
games
just,
need to have wider mass market appeal to get the game sales.
Right. It's not just that Skyrim is better, which like you can make a case for that. And some of them I won't disagree with.
Yeah.
But it's that there are just that many more games players, and that gaming has become that much more accessible. Like to play Morrowind at launch, you were a specific person. Like you were a specific type of person.
Yeah.
To play Skyrim at launch was a lot more accessible. There were more Xbox 360s and PlayStation 3s than there were, you know,
right,
whatever. And it's just it's a whole other thing. And at that point too, you had a whole sub gaming culture of people who were playing games on like Facebook and doing all this sort of stuff that might have also had an Xbox or a PlayStation in their house. I don't know. It's just, yeah, the barrier of entry to playing games was lower. And granted, it was only 9 years difference between 2002 when Morrowind came out, 2011 when Skyrim came out, but like that may as well have been a lifetime. I mean,
for a lot of people it was.
And I talk about
It's been 12 years since Skyrim came out. If Skyrim came out when you were in kindergarten, you're in college today.
Right. And that's kind of what I was talking about, like not the last time I was on the stream and I was talking about gaming into innovation. It's like the amount of innovation that happened between 1990 and 2010 versus, well, I guess that's not, you know what I mean, but
right.
Let's just say the amount of gaming innovation that happened between 2000 and 2010, and then 2011 and 2001 or whatever. Jesus, I can't talk. 2021. It's just not quite as big as it was, the innovative leap.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, you know, that's the technology, that's lots of things, but and some people would be like, well, we went backwards between Daggerfall and Morrowind. I argue that that we went forward, but I mean, there's a lot of things we went forward with, but people are like, well, the game's smaller. There's all this sort of stuff. The procedural generation is cooler. It's like, yeah, if you liked procedural generation, you would have liked No Man's Sky, and you don't. So just stop. But that's my personal that's my personal take on
it. No Man's Sky is a different argument.
Yeah. Whatever.
We're not going to get into that one again here.
The other thesis of
Yano says, what cooler do I recommend for a 2660 V3 or 2680 V4? If we're talking a full desktop setup, a 4U or larger chassis, so something like 120 millimeter cooler, I linked an ID Cooling SSE 20 or SE224. It is a fantastic all-around cooler. You can get it for about $25. And it'll easily cool just about any Xeon that you throw at it, so upwards of 150, 180 watts of cooling dissipation, without breaking the bank. So.
Heck yeah. Oh.
Yes. See, I think there's one more story that I really wanted to get to tonight, and that is Satya Nadella went on record this week as saying, when asked about competing AI assistants, so we're talking Siri, we're talking Alexa, he made a pretty, what sounds like a controversial statement, especially considering Cortana's no winner, that they're dumb as rocks and they just plain don't work. Those are direct quotes. Now, the easy thing to do is dismiss that as a bitter CEO who has a worse competitor to the industry leaders as far as AI assistants go. But I wanted to dig just a little bit deeper, and I wanted to think about this statement a little bit more from like a consumer standpoint. Because I have a lot of family who have, you know, Echoes and home kits and things like that in their houses, and they'll ask it to set a timer, and they'll ask it to remind them of a calendar event, and they'll ask it to, you know, order something,
play a song,
you know, play song, you know, that kind of thing. And sure, it works for that just fine. But those are the very basics of voice interpretation and follow-through. That doesn't require any real back-end other than natural voice receiving and regurgitation. What about when you get into home automation style stuff, or as a service style things? You know, hey, lock the front door, turn on the kitchen lights, turn on my porch light at 6 a.m., you know, alert me to wake up at 7, you know, play such and such song when the garage door opens. Like, you start actually kind of utilizing what they're selling as like the digital home of the future can be today, of the fully integrated voice activated house. He's right. They really are dumb as rocks, and they really don't work. I don't have a lot of concrete evidence, but I did read through a couple of different Reddit threads of anecdotal posts of once a week for a couple hours, Siri will just forget that I have lights, or Alexa will order the wrong product, or you'll say, hey, turn off the kitchen light, and it'll say, searching the web for turn off the kitchen light. And it's like, no, you dumb, like, I think what this is, and this is pure speculation on my part, but when Siri came out, it was kind of groundbreaking. It was, you know, we like to ask Siri, where can I hide a body? And give me directions to this place. Or, you know, what was
play
the
trivia.
Score? Yeah,
that's what we used.
Yeah, play trivia. Or what was the score of the Blazer game last night? Or, you know, whatever the thing may be, you know, your simple requests. And it'd have some snarky responses that were programmed in and whatnot. And those were fun to discover. But that took a lot of processing power. Processing power means money. And this is a service that, outside of ancillary sales, was an accessory to the iPhone. It wasn't a service that you bought access to. It was just something that came with a device that many people were probably just already going to buy, which means it's a cost sink for Apple, not necessarily a sales motivator. When Siri came out, Google and Amazon and Microsoft started scrambling to develop their own. And so now we have, you know, kind of the big four. You've got Cortana, you've got Alexa, you've got Hey Google, you've got Siri. Where in those lists is the product that you can buy? They all sell products with those services. You can buy a home kit. You can buy a Google Home. You can buy devices that are supposed to work with your Google or Amazon account through AWS or through other services. But where's the actual revenue coming in for these companies for all of the costs they are sinking into AI? At least the AI assistant that was supposed to be. There's not. They're licensing access to APIs from larger companies, but if those devices aren't selling, they're not getting revenue from API sales. They're probably, for the last 8 years, there hasn't been a single sale of a phone or tablet or device or computer that's been based solely on, well, I needed an Alexa. You know, yeah, Amazon sells the Dot, but probably sells it at a loss or very near it. You know, yeah, Apple sells HomeKit stuff. They've got the pods and things like that. I'm sure those are loss leaders for them. I'm sure most of Google's stuff are loss leaders for them, because it's about services, not necessarily about the assistants.
Yeah.
So if the assistants aren't making you money, what's a great way to save money on them? Stop devoting all that power to them. Stop making them so good. I think there has been a definitive decline in AI assistant intelligence and reliability because
I can tell you anecdotally
that's attached to them.
I can tell you anecdotally. So I've had like the same, you know, Echo product for a while, which is the Amazon one. And I've never used it for home automation, but I use it for a lot of playing music, a lot of like, hey, play me the news, play my morning flash briefing, do all this, blah, 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 set a timer. And I can say anecdotally that, well, number one, so the service in which I used to just be able to ask my Dot to like, hey, Alexa, play this song. And it would be like, yes, playing this song, no problem. And it would play that song. Now I say, play this song, and it says, you know, if you'd like to have all this music, then you need to subscribe to Amazon Music. So I'm going to play you a radio station based on that instead. Mm-hmm. It's like, really? So that's one decrease in the service right there. And then not only that too, but I noticed that like some of the flash briefing stuff just isn't as, I don't know if it's just because there are so many different you know, like podcasts or news broadcasts, different things. If you guys don't know what the flash briefing is, it's basically them just playing select clips. It's like a micro podcast in a way, and you can select on your Alexa app which you know wants to play. And so I've got like Reuters, and I've got a couple of other things and from podcasts that I listen to and stuff. And it's like, even then it misses a lot of them, or it doesn't play some of them, or it might play one. And some people have tried to tell me, well, that's because only one of those puts them out every single day or whatever, blah 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 blah. But like, it used to play them even if they were repeated. I don't know. So there's just a few ways in which it's not quite as robust as I would have liked, or it used to be.
Yeah. And while I'm sure Spotify is paying the API costs to be linked into, hey, play this song on Spotify, but then it's up to the user to specify which service they want to play that song on. It's not just inherently like, hey, play Baby Got Back. Well, I don't have access to that song, so, piss off.
At this point, we use our Echo basically just as a glorified Bluetooth speaker,
right?
Because the sound is really good, but it doesn't play the music that we want it to play anymore. It doesn't do half the things that we want it to do anymore. And it's like, okay, well, I'm not invested in the Amazon ecosystem, so I don't really care. It was just a nice thing to have for a while,
right? But again, the problem is all of these companies gave away the heart and soul of what could make them a lot of money for free.
Yeah.
But they don't, in the and of themselves, create revenue, which means now they're a cost sink. And I think a lot of those AIs are getting worse because of the way consumers are using them, and because of the products that they're buying aren't actually putting money back into the pockets of the people who developed them. So yeah, I think the service is going to continue to go down.
I think you're right. It feels like that. So we'll just have to see what happens. I mean,
and especially compared to Chat GPT,
yeah,
they're kind of dumb as rocks. And maybe, we're about to see a new age of AI assistant based on Chat GPT. But the thing is, does Chat GPT have the integration with your personal accounts? Can it learn your schedule and your accounts and your preferences and everything else, kind of like the AI assistants could, and still voice them in the same way, but also start creating revenue for these companies? Because if history is anything to go on, Microsoft is going to integrate ChatGPT into Bing as a cloud service. And if it doesn't result in new sales of Windows licenses and Office 365 subscriptions and everything else, we can expect the same thing in the next 7, 8, 10 years of, wow, I used to use this all the time for writing prompts and for, programming help, and it's just gone downhill completely. Well, yeah, they pulled 80% of the processing power out. So
yeah,
service has gone down.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, I don't know.
So for
automation was always...
Brandon says, so for Amazon and Apple, I think they had at least partial success in profiting. Google, I highly doubt ever did. I guarantee Google did not profit. But Amazon, the devices that they sell, all the Echoes and Fire tablets and things like that had the Assistant baked in, the Assistant was never the selling feature outside of the Echo. And the Echo, they're not making money on. Especially considering the development cost of not only the Echo hardware itself, but also the freaking Alexa that powers it and continues to have to power it on Amazon data centers. It's an expensive endeavor, and $30 for a dot is not going to make up the tens of millions of dollars of development costs there.
Yeah.
Let alone just the materials costs for selling you and shipping you an Echo Dot. With Amazon's case, it makes sense as a loss leader, because if they can get you into Amazon services and get you shopping on Amazon with Amazon devices, that cuts out a lot of advertising revenue that they'd otherwise have to spend, and it gets them direct sales in other ways. Like I said, it's an ancillary or accessory to a main service, but in and of itself, it's not the service that's making them money. Just like Siri, just like Google, it's not directly generating profit for them.
Right. And even that, I kind of feel like at its best, it was a gimmick anyways. So we'll see what happens. We're entering the age of like real AI assistants, like you said, with like Chat GPT and all of this sort of stuff. And it doesn't feel like it's that much of a stretch. Like, people are already tapping into the power of Chat GPT to like completely voice power, I guess maybe not ChatGPT, but other open AI APIs in order to fully voice perform video games and things like this. Morrowind has a mod now that's powered by OpenAI programs in order to do all that,
generate natural-ish sounding voices.
Right.
And again, for Morrowind, I don't think generating voices is going to put any voice actors out of work, because it's based on, thousands of past works, and voice actors still have to create characters out of thin air. And that's where a lot of the talent in voice acting is. However, there's a lot of controversy around voice acting right now, because a lot of voice actors are being asked to sign the rights away to the characters that they voice to be generated by AI in the future. Which
and it's kind of funny.
Crap.
It's kind of funny if you spend any time on TikTok like that, you've seen all of the videos where like Barack Obama and like Donald Trump are like playing, Counter-Strike together or whatever, or like Minecraft or whatever. And, it's kind of convincing. You begin to see its tells. There's a lot of Joe Rogan voice bots and stuff too now. And, it's kind of convincing. I'm not too worried about the Morrowind mods or anything like that. But that being said, is that what I'm saying is that like the tools are there to join the OpenAI power with existing infrastructure behind Alexa or Siri to get something that is truly quote unquote AI assisted technology, rather than like whatever the gimmick is that they are now. Like Alexa hasn't been useful to me in like probably a year to 2 years. Like it's just not done what I need it to do. And I don't need it to like turn off my lights even, so it's like, so we're entering that age. It could be interesting to see what happens. But
the only voice assistant I use anymore is when I'm using Android Auto. If I have a math problem I can't do in my head, I want to calculate my gas mileage after I drove away from the pump or something like that, I'll say, hey, what's this divided by this? And I get the answer, because that's pretty darn simple. If I want to get directions to somewhere, I'll say, hey, send me to this place. Okay, getting directions and sending it to Waze, cool. Or sports scores or things like that.
Yeah.
But nothing of consequence, nothing that sold me on the device or would cause me to stop using a device if it went away. Because it's not that vital to my use of Android as an ecosystem.
Yep, exactly. Well, we'll see what happens. It's interesting. We're on the cusp of like an automation revolution, and we're watching it unfold. And I don't think it is going to happen in the home automation sphere first.
No,
that'll kind of continue to be an accessory, as Jeff said. I think an accessory is a really great term for what this type of stuff is, and I think it'll be really easy for them to plug it into these advancing platforms, but. We'll see if that's the first thing that they do with it. I don't think it will be, but I've been wrong before, so.
Yeah. So have I. And because I'm sitting here talking on my own channel and not on CNN right now, I imagine I'm still wrong. So, and I think that's a
CNN
great place
gets it
to
wrong
leave
too.
it, is neither of us have the answers. I hope one of you do.
Good luck to everybody out there.
Anyway, this has been episode 275 here of Talking Heads. Join us every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time for the latest in beer and tech news, and through the month of March, cocktails. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to Craft Computing if you haven't done so already. Make sure to follow me on Mastodon. You can find me at Craft Computing. He is Rett is awesome. Rett, anything good of the order?
Nothing for the good of the order, except for, you can follow some more of my work at redisawesome.com, as well as at redisawesome on Twitter, and go and check out our second channel. We're hoping to do a lot more content on there as time moves on. We've got the Morrowind video, we've got a review on a scanline generator, and an old school retro graphics card, as well as all the clips here from Talking Heads. So we plan on doing a lot more with that, hopefully soon. Keep an eye on it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And
Cool. Yeah, and if you want more Morrowind talk, there's 27 minutes of it over on Craft Extra. So Go
really
give
is.
that a watch. Anyway.
Could have went longer.
Yeah. I know.
There will be more Morrowind videos.
I'm sure there will be. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. And as always, we'll see you next week.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, everyone.